Thank you so much for everything you do for us, and I pray that you'll speak through me now, God. This is a different type of way to do this, but I pray that you speak through me and give me the words to say, God, even as we're watching this online and it is different, God. I just pray that you'll speak through me and get your message out, exactly what you want, God. Just get the distractions and anything out of the way, and I pray we see you and meet you. And so I pray as I speak to this, God, that it's your words, it's not me, it's not my thoughts, but I just want you to use me in this, God. So thank you so much for everything you do for us, Jesus. Thank you for everything. We pray in your name. Amen. Well, it's another one of these sermons here where it's different. There's very few of us in here, and to do this, it's always kind of strange, with no one in here. But I love you guys, and we're going to get through this, and I'm glad we can do this. We can do this online, that we can still have church, we can still worship together, and we're still having our Zoom meetings and Facebook Lives and everything. You're probably going to see a whole lot more of that, but I just want you to know that we're here for you. And in church family, I pray that you guys continue to reach out to each other, check on each other, do what we can now that's allowed, and let's not just sit back, I've said before, and do nothing, but let's be there for each other. This is a time when I think it's important for us to, sometimes we're forced to separate and be away, but maybe it's a time for us to also sit back and just evaluate, like, how are we as a church with each other? How can we be in each other's lives? So I pray that we do that with each other and just never lose that connection. We're going to be back together. I'm convinced of that, but this is a time that I think we are being stretched. We are being pulled in different ways, and so I just pray that we continue to stay there with each other and stay connected. Let me jump in here today. I'm thinking about this. We're going to be in quite a few different passages, but again, thinking about what's going on here. I was reading this about Nietzsche. I know he's an atheist, and I'm not going to talk about that a lot today, but Nietzsche famously said about 150 years ago, God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. Now, I said before, he was an atheist, didn't believe in God, but one of the things I think he was in his time, he was seeing and how society was moving. It was moving to we're past this phase of having a God. We're past this phase of needing him. Like many today are like, I thought you guys were moved past this. And he was one of those, interesting enough, he was one of the very few, I would say, consistent atheists who followed it out to its logical conclusion, which was not a very happy place that it was going to be. I mean, he saw that. He saw when you believe in there is no God and this is all there is, and then we die and that's it. None of this makes sense. This is just a random accident. This is just going to happen. There is no real meaning in all of this. Things just happen. It's nihilism. It's just there is no absolutes. There's no truth out there. There's nothing we can really cling to that is the truth that we all should really be following after. And consequently, it led him to depression, to just sadness. And like I said, I believe from that position, when you really follow it out to its conclusion, it's just logical conclusion, it is a very bleak type of a future. Now, you can pick out your own little morals that you want to live by, but when you want to follow it truly in what it's saying, there is no meaning in all of this. And so as you think about really what's going on out there, I want to paint a different picture on that. I do believe that God is real. I think he's alive more than ever, and I want to talk about that a little bit here today. One of the movies that I like on Netflix, I think it's not on there anymore. I think it's on maybe VidAngel, if you watch that, where you can edit some of the shows that you want to watch. But I watched it, and they're going to have more episodes. But The Chosen, it's another one of those Christian movies. It's about Jesus, and it's about his time with the apostles. But what I like about it that's maybe different from some of the other ones is many of the Christian shows and movies that they make are kind of cheesy. They're maybe not well done. We're used to, in 21st century, we're used to just high quality type of shows. And what I like about this one, about The Chosen, is it seems to kind of paint Jesus in a little bit more of a kind of relatable way. There's things in there that he does that it's almost like they use modern day type of language and how they talk to each other, still sticking with the Bible, still sticking with the truth. Nothing's changing there, but it's almost like it made him a little more relatable, like we would understand in the 21st century. And you see more of maybe his personality in there. And I know they're taking some liberties in there, but nothing's changing in there that's wrong. But I just like how they paint him in this kind of more compassionate type of way that's relatable and that we can really understand. So I was thinking about that, and I think that's really important for us. We're going to talk about that today, just who Jesus is, that I believe we can have this close connection with him, this kind of relatable, love, compassionate, relationship with him, that he's calling us to be close to him. And I want us to see more of that. Now, some of you may be more of the, hard line, cold hard facts of the evidence of Jesus and things like that. I like some of those sometimes, but that's not really what I'm going to talk about here today. And I don't know that that's necessarily what we need right now with stress and anxiety and just wondering what's going on. And many of you may be like wondering, is Jesus out there? Is God out there? Does he really care? I get questions like that. And so I want to talk about that today. So I'm going to turn here first to Matthew chapter 8. And what I want to look in here is three different accounts. There's many accounts we could look at, but I want to look at three different accounts in here that Jesus had with these people that gives us, I believe, like a tangible, just like visible picture of who he was and how he was and the compassion that he had and what you and I think we need to see in our daily lives. And we definitely need to see maybe in a time like this, maybe when you're going through a major struggle, maybe you're not even going through the sickness of this virus, but like just the economy and everything, and just the worrying about what's going to happen is right there. And so I want us to see a Jesus here that we know really cares about us. And so I want to read this. Here's the first one I want to go to, Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8, he's just walking along. He's been in his ministry now, starting out. He's going out there, and he would have these encounters sometimes. And this is one particular one. Matthew 8, 1 through 4. I'm just going to read a few verses of that. It said, when Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. He said, I am willing. He said, be clean. Immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, see that you don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priests and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them. And this is what I would say if you're thinking about these verses right here. Very simple thing that I want you to get through this is that Jesus wants to help you. I'm just convinced of that. And I think we need to be convinced of that. I think we need to understand maybe that's a principle we need to be pushing out there as the church, that we need everybody to understand that Jesus actually does really want to help us, that he's there for us, that he cares. He's not this bystander standing back there watching us, like God's not this cosmic, created, or this cosmic being out there just looking down on us and just kind of watching with popcorn, like watching this mess happen with no real care or concern. Like, I wonder what they're going to do through all this. He's presently involved in us. We need to see that, and I hope you do. Jesus wants to help us. So he's coming there, and he's breaking through these barriers. This guy is there. In the show, I really like this. There was a few of these episodes that talked about this, and I just like the visual picture that it showed, like he's walking along, and then this guy with leprosy just really comes up there, and he's supposed to be separated from everybody, which you and I, maybe not in the exact same way, but I mean, like, we see that now. Like we understand a little bit of what quarantining is. I mean, you see us all out there. We have to stay away. There's these distances we have to have. We have tape measured out in the stores, and in Walmart. Even maybe it's not all perfectly done right there, but we've got these different barriers now that just wasn't there, like sneeze shields or whatever they are, like at the stores when you're paying for things. It's just a different time, and so there's this separation that goes on. So in a little bit of way, maybe we can somehow see this, but this guy's supposed to be separated from everybody, and he's taking a chance here, just in his desperation. I think he has no other option. It's just desperation there, that he's coming to Jesus. Very contagious. They didn't have the medical know-how then to really know what to do with this, and so this guy is supposed to be away from everybody, and he's just, I have no other option. So he's coming there just falling at the feet of Jesus. Please, if you will. Like this desperation that he's asking him now. Can you help me out through all this? And so Jesus does. That's what I love about this. This guy's infected, and you would normally think in society what a person would normally do about this is be mad that this guy even approached him. Like, what do you do? I don't want to get sick from what you have. Like, how dare you come at me like this? And he's just completely different from what you would normally think right there. He's willing to go and talk to this guy. He's willing to be there for him. He's willing to step out there when nobody else. This guy was probably abandoned by everybody, probably because of safety reasons and just people wanted to live, so they stayed away from him. But he's just in this desperate moment there, asking for Jesus. Can you help me in some way right here? Rejected, hopeless. Like I said, probably abandoned by everybody. And this is his last chance. So many stories I see about that in the Bible, that people come to him in this way. People today, even not even just in the Bible, that I see people's lives are that same way, that you have nothing. There's just stories of Christians I know, and that's where they were. They just had no other options. They were desperate. Some of them maybe even wanted to take their own lives and different things, and yet they came to Jesus. Just one last shot. I don't know what else to do here, Jesus. Just one last thing. If you are real, and this is the stories of people's lives being changed, and this is, again, just one of those things right there, where Jesus is there. A beautiful, amazing type of picture where he was breaking through these societal barriers and reaching out to this guy. He said, I am willing. And he didn't like us. He didn't say, like, hold on, like, let me measure out like a 6-foot distance here. I am willing if you stay at this right type of distance. Like, he didn't pull out a tape measure and, like, make sure he's at the right distance right there. He's like, I am. He actually touched the guy. Like, that was going to get him this disease. He was going to get this, and yet he wasn't worried about this. He wasn't worried about this. He's the Son of God. I mean, he knew he could heal the guy. But again, just this is who he is. This is what I think we need to understand. We need to understand when we're in our lowest places, when we've messed up, when everyone else has abandoned us, when we have no other options. Again, that's what I want you to see, and that's what I see in Scripture. That's what I see about Jesus' life. When you and I have nothing else, we go to him. He's there for us. He wants us to go to him, which is crazy. He wants us. He's not waiting for us to clean up ourselves. I don't understand how we think we can do that, but that's just seems to be ingrained in all of us. It's like we have to clean ourselves up. I have to get right. I have to clean myself of this disease before I can get in the presence of God. And again, we see these very clear pictures, these visible, powerful pictures of him saying, no, man, I'll go to you in your worst place. You came to me. I am willing. That's the same thing he's saying to us. Blows me away. He had this deep, real compassion for this guy. And he didn't, like I said, he didn't just talk about it. It wasn't just a 6-foot distance. And he said, yeah, I am willing. I gotta stay back here and stay away from you. He didn't say some things like you can be in the club, you're still going to be diseased and all that. No, he was willing right there, and he showed that. Let me look at another one here, because I said I want to look at 3 different examples. Such a powerful picture, but these are all really different examples, but it shows the willingness Jesus was doing, all different people. Look at John chapter 3. John chapter 3, and after that I'm going to go into the next chapter, but John chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. I want to read a big section here. This is about a guy named Nicodemus. So first you had a leper. Now you have a guy who's like the upper echelon of society. He's respected. He's a religious leader. Completely different sides here. Now he comes in verse 1 there. It says, now there was a Pharisee, a man named Nicodemus, who was a member of the Jewish ruling council. He came to Jesus at night and said, Rabbi, we know that you're a teacher who's come from God, for no one could perform the signs that you're doing if God were not with him. Jesus replied, very truly, I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they're born again. How can someone be born when they're old? Nicodemus asked. Surely they can't enter a second time into their mother's womb to be born. Jesus answered, very truly, I tell you, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they are born of water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to the Spirit. You should not be surprised at my saying, you cannot be born, you must be born again. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you can't tell where it's coming from or where it's going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. How can this be? Nicodemus asked. You're Israel's teacher, said Jesus, and you don't understand these things? Very truly, I tell you, you speak of what we know. We speak of what we know, and we testify to what we have seen. But still, you people don't accept our testimony. I've spoken to you of earthly things, and you didn't believe. How then will you believe if I speak of heavenly things? No one has ever gone into heaven except the one who came from heaven, the Son of Man. Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that everyone who believes may have eternal life. So just a picture of that. Now, Nicodemus shows up a couple more times. Now, we see he's there, and he's talking with some of the other religious leaders later, and he's actually kind of, defending Jesus, defending the disciples there in a little bit. He's just speaking on their behalf a little bit, trying to get in there. And then you see him later on, I believe in chapter 19, where he's there with another guy, taking Jesus' body, preparing him for burial. Like he's there. He became a believer, like he's there. I believe that. I think it's just completely changed. But this guy is different. He's not like this leper who's coming there like, look, everybody's abandoned me. Nicodemus had a good life. Nicodemus was okay. He would have been fine. He could have gone on and done things. Everyone, just revered him and all this. He was this religious leader. He had a good thing going, at least worldly standards. He was fine. So it's a completely different situation with him. But he's there and he's asking questions. This is what I think is cool about Jesus and really what he was doing, is that he's going to all different people. This one guy is dying. He's just desperate to have like some relief, and he has some belief. He's clinging to this belief. Maybe this is the one who can actually save me. And he's having this faith in him because he's just painful sores and nobody's there. And now there's this guy who's not going through any of that, but he just has some questions. Is this the Messiah? Man, he's intrigued by him, He's not supposed to be. Nicodemus is supposed to be above this. He's supposed to be tearing him down. He's supposed to be answering questions from everybody else like, no, this isn't him. This isn't right. You should be listening to us. This guy is, breaking the laws and doing all these things. He went and healed this leper. That's the stuff that Nicodemus was supposed to be doing. Everybody else was doing that. But yet he's meeting with him. And we don't know why he met him at night. There's possibilities of he didn't want anybody else to know. I think that's a strong possibility. Like he didn't want his people to know. Like he's risking a lot of things here. He's risking societal, political, religious suicide, just from everybody. Like all this stuff. He's going to be throwing his career down the drain if he's seen with him. So I think it's a real possibility that he just doesn't want anybody to know. He doesn't want people to know that he's there talking with this guy. Maybe he's getting some advice. He's trying to hear to see if this is really true or not. It's possible too. Someone has said that he wanted to talk to Jesus like at night because there'd be nobody else around. Maybe he just wanted that much time. He's like, this is the big thing, so I want to make sure nobody else is around because there's always crowds following Jesus, always coming at him like lepers and different people that are wanting to be healed and wanting to know. And he's like, I want to go to him at night. Possible, There's a lot in there, but he was risking a whole lot in there and talking to him. But again, for us, like there's different ones of us. I know you come from different backgrounds, and in the church we have different people from all different walks of life, and people come at him with different questions, and that's what I think is amazing about him, that we need to understand is that he's going to everybody. He's going to this guy who's completely abandoned from everybody to this guy that is on a completely different level, and yet he's coming at him now, not just to be healed, but he's got some questions, some objections, doubts, and Jesus is there. It's the same one who was willing to take some time with this guy and heal him is the same one who's willing to sit down with this guy who should have this down. That's what he said a little bit there. Yeah, you're Israel's teacher. You should know this stuff. And he's willing to sit down still and talk with this guy. And again, that's maybe we need to understand that, because I hear a lot of times, like I'm there sometimes too, when I feel like, God doesn't have time for me. And I know a lot of people, maybe some of you out there, like you feel like, well, he just doesn't have time for me. He doesn't care. He doesn't care for my problems. He doesn't care for these things here. Or he's surely not going to come to me because of my checkered past, all these things that I've done here, or my objections. Just have some doubts, Kyle. And I don't know that Jesus would really want to take some time with me. He just wants people who have it all down. And I'm just telling you, that's completely untrue. Like, none of us have this all down. This guy didn't have it all down. This guy was smart. This guy was trained, but he didn't know this, and that's why he's coming to Jesus at night. Like, who are you? I want to know this. I want to know these things that everybody's saying about you. We've seen the things, but tell me the truth on this. Jesus even asked his disciples some of these things, and this is a very important thing here. Matthew 16, 13 through 15. It says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? And they replied, some said John the Baptist, others Elijah, others Jeremiah, or some of the prophets. And then he asked the question that he's asking us, and everybody in the world who ever lives, like, we need to answer this. Whether you believe in him or not, we're going to come to a conclusion on this. But he said, but who do you say I am? Who do you guys say I am? Which is, again, like I said, what we all have to wrestle with, what every single one of us individually are going to have to come to a conclusion on this. Who do you guys say I am? Who do we believe he is? And that's why I think it's so important for us to talk about Jesus. He was just the most influential figure in all of history. Whether you like him or not, whether everybody is for him or not or believes in him, I'm just saying, like, throughout history in this time, he's just the most known figure in history, maybe the most debated. People don't know, but we got to come to a conclusion on this. So it's okay. I think he's okay with those questions. I know he is. I know he wants us to come out. He doesn't want us to sit back and wonder and live in a life where we're afraid, well, what's everybody else going to say if I actually try to talk to this guy? What's going to happen to my career? What's going to happen to my family life? What's going to happen to my friends? The ones that I used to be with them. I used to talk about this guy, but now in some ways I'm a little bit intrigued. Now I want to know what all this stuff's happening. Is he real? What's going to happen? So you got to wrestle with that. Am I willing to just bury all these questions I have in this Jesus that seems to make sense? It seems like he's loving, he's caring, he could come to me, and it's just amazing to see these stories. Can you bury that intrigue and that wonder and maybe that pulling that you feel towards him, or are you willing to sacrifice things for him? Because I think that's what it comes down to for all of us. And so he's okay for us to pursue him, to seek answers, to come to him. He's okay with that, and he's going to answer those questions for you. Let me look at one last example here. The different examples of people that he spoke to. The very next chapter, John chapter 4. Now he had to go through Samaria, so he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into town to buy some food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews don't associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw from and the well's deep. Where are you going to get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and the livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become like a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so I won't have to get thirsty and have to keep coming here and draw water." Now, I'll stop there on that. You can read the rest of the story on that. But I love the fact that he says he had to go through Samaria. You know, when it says it in there, he had to go through Samaria. It doesn't give any more context on that, but it's like he didn't have to. Like when you're talking about necessity, like there were other ways. In fact, if you're wondering about just the story of the Jews and the Samaritans, why there was this battle, you have Judea at the top, or you have Galilee at the top, you have Samaria, and then you have Jerusalem, Judea, and it's like to go to Galilee, say you're coming from Jerusalem, Samaria is right there in between, and we all know like the quickest way to a point, like we learned this if you're learning anything from grade school, if you're still learning anything from grade school, I don't know. Parents do this in school. The quickest way somewhere is a straight line. And so it would be from Jerusalem going up to Galilee. You just want to go straight through Samaria. But they would go way out of their way to avoid the Samaritans. That's how much this battle was really going on with them. And it went back hundreds of years, back to the time when they were in persecution and just in slavery to the Assyrians and the Babylonians, back to that time. Because what happened is, you have some of the Samaritans who were mixing in with some of the Mesopotamians. They were intermarrying, and the Jews, many of them got mad about that. And there was just a hatred, and some of the Jews thought that they were abandoning their heritage and all this. And there was just this extreme hatred that developed over time, and it was going on even into the time of Jesus. And so he knew this, and he saw this hatred, this battle, this bias against each other, and just this crazy, unnecessary voyage and these travels that they would go around Samaria. And so that's what I love that. It says, now he had to go through Samaria. I just love that he was doing that. You even think about times when Jesus, like, he wasn't there to just win a popularity contest. right? Like he would tick people off a lot of times and purposely trying to get his message out there and to show them how stupid it was, some of these things that they had and this hatred for each other and this racism just for each other. And he was trying to tear that down. You think about stories like the parable of the Good Samaritan. The parable of the Good Samaritan. That ticked off, and he's telling Jews this. He's like, he talks about these guys coming down, this priest, this Levite, these Jews coming down. There's this broken, hurt guy who was beaten, left half for dead. And he talked about Jews coming by, and they just looked and they left the guy. But this Samaritan came by, and he actually helped him. Now, you see why that story just made people even more mad. How dare he do that? Maybe for us, maybe it's not as deep of a hatred, but you think about maybe going to deep Republican ground, and someone comes in there who's trying to develop this, following, tell people, and they tell the story of the good Democrat, and it's like this Republican went by and this other Republican, they went by and they did nothing, but the Democrat, stopped, or vice versa in that way. You could just see the hatred. How dare he, say that? Like in the Deep South, it's like, get a gun, take him out. So this is kind of a picture of this hatred that's going on there. So that's what's coming up with this woman there. She's seeing this guy come there who's a Jew, who's more than that. He's a man. He's a rabbi. He's Jewish, and he's willing to come there and talk to her. And so she's a little bit skeptical of this. She's a little bit, just not really quite sure what to think of this guy. And so I think she's a little bit smart aleck in some ways. Like, what is this guy? Like, she's getting her water. Like, who, what are you talking to me for? Plus, not to mention that she had a pretty shady past with, Jesus pointed out to her. I think he was just willing to talk to her. He wasn't trying to be mean in any way, but he's just trying to show who he is. And he's talking to her, asking her for water, if you knew who I was, And he's going on talking about this, who you greater than our fathers. She's pointing out some of the things in the past. And then he kind of goes into more than just his man side. He goes into his omniscience there, and he says, go ask your husband to come back here and we'll talk about this. Well, she's like, I'm not married. And he's like, that's right. He's like, in fact, you've been married 5 times and this guy you're with is not even your husband. And she's like, oh. She's like, okay, this guy's a prophet or something. Like, how did he know that? So he's revealing to her some of these things that just a normal guy wouldn't know. And so you see this kind of building up there, and she's just wondering about this, and he's talking to her, and he's telling her all these things. And it goes to the end when his disciples start coming back, and she really starts to kind of get this. I think she's just building up, and she's seeing this guy. She's seeing this compassionate side in Jesus that just wouldn't be there from anybody else. She's out there alone at a different time of the day when nobody else is there because she's trying to avoid everybody like us now. Like, there's this quarantine time. She's like, I want to be away from everybody because I just don't have this great reputation, and I want to stay away from all these judgments and everything. And so she's broken through all that now, and she's seeing this compassionate side to Jesus. And she's all excited. In fact, it says she left her jar there, a jar of water, ran back and started telling everybody else, like, is this the Messiah? Is this the one that's supposed to come? He told me everything I ever did. And she's just spewing all this stuff out of excitement and just wonder. And she saw that in Jesus. And I think we need to remember that. Maybe we need to be refreshed of that, of who he is and what he's done for us. I would say this too. Jesus will find a way to come to you. He's going to find a way to come to you. He's going to go there. Think about these 3 accounts. He wasn't scared off by this contagious disease outcast, right? Everybody else was like, stay away. That's what they would. I can just picture Peter in there like, Jesus, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go to this guy. You will get sick. You're going to die. We're going to protect you. I can just see like these disciples doing that, and he just went there. He wasn't afraid by this disease contagious guy. He wasn't too busy to sit down with the man to answer some questions. This guy who was a completely different situation from the leper, he wasn't afraid to sit down and answer these questions. He wasn't too busy for him. Again, the same Jesus, the same type of compassion that he's willing. He's going to come and reach people in that way who were seeking. And he wasn't going to miss this opportunity to talk to this lost, broken, jaded woman, who had this past that she was afraid to really get around anybody else and was afraid to have some type of maybe deep, meaningful relationship. He wasn't afraid to go to her. He wasn't going to miss that opportunity, which is why I said he had to go through Samaria, because I think I know, like he intentionally was like, I'm going to go talk to this lady. She needs to hear about me. She needs to hear, about the truth. She needs to see visibly the truth. And he was willing to go to her. He planned that out. And so also she would go and tell those people that she went and told later. That's the same Jesus that I'm talking about. That's the one that I'm saying is still here, that I hope everybody knows, that I want everybody to meet. Let me say this for some of us here as I close out. This is a quote from G.K. Chesterton talking about this. Now maybe some of us just need to be reminded of this. You know, just like I always say, there's two types of people here. It's just those who believe and those who don't, right? Or maybe those who you haven't believed yet. Maybe you're there. But I want us to think about this, about Jesus, about coming to him, about what this means. Maybe we just need to be reminded again who he is. G.K. Chesterton said, there are two ways to choose a coat. One way is to look at all the measurements and then make a decision as to whether or not it'll fit. The second way is to choose to actually put it on. Both are significant, but nothing replaces the importance of actually putting it on. I hope you get the picture of that. You know what he's saying there? I'm talking about Jesus, like this relationship with him. You know, one way just to get a coat, like you can just look at that. Like, is this, maybe I think that'll fit, get all the measurements. The other way is just actually put it on. Jesus said, clothe yourself with me in some passages. He said, taste and see that the Lord is good. Look, the church, Christians, people out there, maybe you're not quite there, we can talk about Jesus all we want. I've said this many times. We can talk about him. We can have this perfectly formed doctrine about who he is, what it means to follow him. You can lay out what we call sometimes in the church the Romans road. You know, here's passages in Romans. This is what it means to be saved. Know these things. Know it in Greek and all this stuff. You can know these things. You can know these things about how to be saved. Be able to explain it to people. But until we actually do it, you know, until we actually are willing to do that and put our faith in him, it's just talk. And so I think about us as the church right now, as we're going through all this, as it's difficult, as we're wondering is what's going to happen through all this, what's going to be the future of this. I just want, very simple here, I don't know what's all going to happen. I'm not a financial guy. I'm not going to tell you what to put all your money into or how what's all going to happen and all this stuff. I don't have a crystal ball to say this is going to end here, all this stuff. What I do know is Jesus. And I believe in him, and I think it's so important for us. I know it's so important for us to understand, to come to a conclusion of what we believe of who Jesus is. Every single one of us. The church, like we need to do that. You know, we talk about the church. We're not always right. We don't always have all this down. So the church, people outside the church, I'm just asking us, like, who do we say Jesus is? Who do we say he is? Like, we got to come to an understanding of that. But then what do we believe about him? Do we believe he's just this guy who's out there, doesn't really care about our specific lives? He did this really big thing, but he's out there. He's completely removed away from us. I don't believe that. I want you to see that he is this one who wants to be personally involved in your life. He's this one who cares about what's happening around us. He cares about your life. He cares enough to go to somebody who's diseased and sick that nobody else cared about. He's cared enough to talk to this guy, just some questions. He cared enough about this person who was kind of, in some ways, really kind of hostile, not really wanting to hear anything from him, who's heard all this before, knew some things, but had a bad past. He was willing to go to all these different people out of pure love, out of pure compassion, out of knowing that they needed help. And he's going to do everything he can to really go to us. And I want us to have at least that type of assurance. I want you to know that if you want to know him. Look, here's normally where I would bring the band up, you know, and we'll do like an invitation time or a prayer time. We can all go around here. But this is what I hope you guys do in this weird time that I know that we are in our homes. Do this with your family if you're alone or if you have somebody else. Like, take some time now. Pray to him. I don't know where you are. I don't know your thoughts. I don't know your questions. But it's okay. Don't just bury those things. Take it to the King. Take it to the one who, like I said, like I'm showing you here, he wants to know this stuff. He really cares about you. He wants to know these things. He wants to know what you're going through. He wants to know your questions. He wants to know your doubts. He wants to know. It's okay sometimes. Maybe you need to yell at him. Maybe you need to talk. Just open that communication with him and talk. That's better than us just sitting here alone and burying all these things. If you don't know him, if you don't even quite know if you believe in him, I'm fully convinced that if you're open, you can just have a very open, honest conversation with him and just say, if you are real, I pray that you'll make yourself known to me. Help me through all this because I don't even know if I believe in you. Like if that may be your very real honest thoughts in life, thoughts about him, that you're not quite sure, you're open to this. If you are, I believe that he will do that for you. I'm not saying he's going to show up and just like be right there in front of you and all this, but I'm telling you, I believe that. It's just because I've experienced that. He's real. He's there. And he will pursue you. He will come after you if you're just open to that. So church, I pray that we all take this time and pray to him about that we understand truly more who he is. We open up to him. Let's live it out. Let's live it out in our lives and our families and to the world. They see that. And let's find ways to show the world that he's real. Let's find ways to show this type of compassion to everybody. Let's tell the world about him. Let's don't waste any opportunity. Like he said, I had to go into Samaria. I had to do that. Is that the same type of passion that we have as a church? That we have to do that? That's what I pray about all the time. I don't always have that there, but I pray, God, that you do that through me and through all of us. You guys, I'm gonna pray right here, and I pray you guys have that prayer time on your own too. But let's go to God in prayer. Father, thank you so much for bringing us here, all together where we are in different places. I pray that your church gets this, that we understand what it means to follow you and to live for you, and you need to shake us out of our comfort zones. Like in some ways, this is doing that to the world. God, help us to see you more through all of this. Help us to turn to you more. Help us to give up things that we shouldn't be doing more. Help us to just give everything to you, God. And even as I say that, sometimes that's easy to say those words, but then we don't know, like, how do I practically do that, God? Help us to know what it is we need to give up and how we can follow you more and be all in, God. Help us. Make that clear to us. Help us as a church to help each other do that, God. And I pray for anybody who's out there who's just had this wrong picture of Jesus, that they couldn't be saved. God, I just pray that they understand that you love them, that you're greater than their sins, that you can bring them out of this. You want to give them life, that you love them. You did all this for all of us. God, I just pray everyone out there would understand this and they would turn to you and they would give their life to you and trust in you, God. That maybe they would seek help if they have questions about this. They wouldn't bury these things. But Jesus, thank you so much for showing us these examples of how much you loved us. And then ultimately on the cross, that great love that you had for us. Thank you for that, Jesus. We love you. We pray this all in your name. Amen.